Let's do a motivation before we begin. So just adjust your posture. And then go a little bit inside. So just take your attention to the breathing. Quieten down the mind. Stay in the present. And then from there, move on to motivation. Trying to investigate why are you actually here this evening, or this afternoon, or wherever you are. What brings you here? What's the mindset behind that? So go back to the fundamental, if you can. The basis is that we're all, wherever we are, looking for happiness. We're trying to avoid any kind of undesirable situation in our life, mental or physical. And we try to focus on inner happiness. We kind of realize that inner happiness is coming from our own minds, not from the outside sensory objects. So we're looking for methods to improve our mental health primarily, to reduce the afflictions, improve the positive states of mind. We're looking for methods to do that. And then to do it perhaps to its highest potential. Then you put, or bring to mind the perfect example of a being who did that. So in the space in front, you can bring to mind the Buddha. We call this being the conqueror of all the afflictions, all the subtle stains of the afflictions. As you bring to mind the Buddha, really feel the presence of this being in front, smiling gently, gazing down at you. and try to feel this connection as we're looking for the perfect means, the methods to improve our minds. The Buddha's there to help us step by step. So we use whatever images we've seen, their statues or tankas. Based on that, based on those images, in front of us appears an actual living Buddha. And then we put our minds to entrust in the methods that he shared with us that's still being taught and practiced today. So those of you who've taken refuge, let your minds go gently towards taking full entrustment in the Buddha, the being, the Dharma, and the Sangha, until we also achieve that realized, purified state of mind. Why would we like to do that? Because we then surround ourselves with all sentient beings. So our parents, relatives around us, friends behind us, all the other living beings. Okay, now with that motivation, let's begin. So the subject again is the four foundations of mindfulness. So here particularly how it's used now to look at the Four Noble Truths. So I kind of mentioned it briefly last time. I have now this time a little bit of a slide to help you remember. So if you can show that up, Michael, we can have a look at that to remind ourselves why we're using mindfulness on the body, feelings, mind, and then phenomena. So using mindfulness of the body, we talked about last time, we can see how we kind of see its nature more clearly, how each part of the body isn't by its nature pure, what we normally consider as kind of pure. So going from the skin, hair, etc., outside to even the internal parts of the body, if you look clearly, there's no actual part that we can see as being really pure, pleasurable. So we see it more in its nature being impermanent and suffering. So that leads all the way to actually understand the true suffering, the first noble truth. Today we're going to discuss more on the feelings, how feelings are but also by nature impermanent, changing second by second, also by nature dissatisfying. And by seeing that, we understand a little bit more how true origins come about. So meaning that feelings. So here, feelings is not talking about the feelings that we normally talk about with somebody when we say, "Oh, you hurt my feelings," or "I'm so emotional." It's not so much on those kind of feelings like the psychology will talk about. So here, in the Buddhist perspective, is talking about generally feeling as sensation of what we have: pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. So pleasant can have two aspects: mental pleasant sensations and physical pleasant sensations. Unpleasant can also have two: mental, physical, and neutral is only one. So normally it can be divided into 5 types of sensations. Right. So So we'll go into more why feeling. By putting mindfulness of feeling, we understand a little bit more how the true origins come about. But anyway, the third object we'll talk about next week is mind. By seeing mind, how it's constantly changing, then we also understand that the mind doesn't disappear after death. It does continue on. You understand it can be, mind has its own nature, emptiness of the mind, that leads to understand the afflictions aren't the afflictions, the negative emotions that we normally talk about as disturbing, can be removed. Can be removed to such an extent that they will never have the power to come back. Right? So that's exactly what this being we visualize in front of us, the Buddha. And Buddha means awakened one. Awakened from what? All the negative emotions, awakened from any kind of stains or afflictions. And that's only possible because our mind doesn't have this, although the emotions don't have this kind of capacity to enter our minds in such a way they're always with us, you see. In an ordinary being, it seems like that, but because a mind has that capacity, is not doesn't have a kind of an intrinsic nature to it. The afflictions can be removed to such an extent that they don't come back. That leads to what we call a true cessation. So that's why liberation is possible. That's why enlightenment is possible. All right. Then we look at the true paths. So that's phenomena. So phenomena can be types of different objects, but mostly about the path, the wisdom, realizing emptiness, bodhicitta, etc. All the antidotes to afflictions. And they also don't exist inherently, and they can be used to such an extent that it leads to a true cessation. Okay, so we'll look at the next slide. We'll go back to the looking at the body. Let's refresh our minds. So here we looked last week. The body, by nature, impure by nature. The causes are the substances from our parents. The result, eventually, it will become a corpse. Different ways of meditating. You can use a mindfulness on the breathing, mindfulness for 4 postures. So some of you may have done these 10-day retreats, the classical Vipassana retreats. This is what we kind of focus on mostly, right? And again, it brings us back into reality to see ourselves, our bodies actually as they are. And then with that awareness, we take it out to others around us. It also reduces attachment to ourselves, reduces attachment to others. We have a clear picture of what is in nature, ourselves and others. See, then there's different ways. Again, these ways of meditating can be used differently in different times of your practice. Some people may just focus mostly on mindfulness of breathing most of their meditation practice. Some people might shift on to then, as you go from the sitting meditation up to the postures, walking, sitting, standing, lying down, all these postures, you use your mindfulness out of the different postures. Then the mindfulness on purity. So again, you look at now the parts of the body like we did last time. You go through each part. You can do a scanning meditation and see exactly, starting with ourselves, how what we think ourselves is beautiful or pleasant. We kind of break it down just to see the parts as they are, see the nature of it. And then we break it down further into 4 elements. And then you can break it down further as visualizing our body as decomposing, as going. So especially here, like after death, what actually happens to the body, the so-called body that we nourished, took care of so much, what's actually happened to its elements as they decompose, So then you see, actually, what is this thing that we really clung on to, this physical thing. So then, we understand clearly what is the body, and we shift this attention from ourselves, our attachment to it, attachment to others, which creates so much difficulty for us. And then we see basically true suffering by its nature, right? So let's move on to the feeling aspects. So thank you very much, Michael. You can take them off. Then, so again, we have these 3 types of feelings normally that we in Buddhism we talk about. Why is that insight into true origins. So we have to think, what are the three types of feeling? It's pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. So these can be also related to the true sufferings, because the unpleasant sensations that we have when we meet, we contact situations, people, different objects that are difficult for us. This the contact. So feeling comes from contact. Also, feeling comes from karma, of course, yeah. But then, when our minds meet these objects, and then due to karma, we have an arising of unpleasant feeling. That's normally what we call, from the three types of suffering, the suffering of suffering, right? So we understand completely this unpleasant feeling that's arising now is something we don't want to have. We want to, like we said in the motivation, we're looking for happiness, not looking for suffering. So this is suffering that we're trying to now avoid, these unpleasant situations in our life, physical pain, mental distress, anxiety, stress, all that comes about, we're trying to avoid, generally. Then the second type of feeling that normally happens as we meet the sense objects, situations come up, a pleasant sensation comes up. And that leads to kind of a craving to increase that feeling. We want to be with the person, the object, the situation that brings on that feeling. And that leads to more attachment. All right. So this is the second type of suffering. So again, if you look carefully at that particular feeling, this is kind of sometimes it'll be more difficult, because what we normally see as pleasure is seen as dissatisfying. So this is normally what we normally crave after going after pleasant sensations. We see now as dissatisfying by nature, letting us down. And even the objects, people, situations that we put our trust in to bring that pleasure isn't always going to bring that pleasure. Right? We actually see that. We get disappointed with the objects around us, the situations, the people that we normally consider as being having this power to bring us this pleasurable feeling. Then there's a neutral feeling. So this is when we actually don't have either pleasant sensation or unpleasant sensation. So here, some of you were sitting here this morning here, kind of now I'm kind of a neutral situation. I haven't been sitting very long, so my legs aren't in pain, my knees are okay, hips are okay, But, but just being in this body, just being in this kind of being in samsara, having the body in mind. Okay, right now I don't have any unpleasant sensation. I don't have any kind of really pleasant sensations. So I would consider a neutral feeling right now, physically. Mentally, I'm not sure. I'll have to check. I think it's okay. I'm just I kind of woke up, so I'm kind of a bit zombie-like. So it's kind of neutral, probably. It's not pleasant or unpleasant, right? So we have this, but based on these neutral sensations, anything can arise depending on karma, depending on what we meet. What we so Buddha image coming above. Yeah, that's my picture above my room behind me. So these three sensations, if you look carefully, we put our mindfulness on that. Just bring the awareness into these feelings. See what happens as the pleasant sensation arises. What object, what contact brought that about? Yeah. So here we're very, very kind of a good moment to stop the craving, the clinging. That's what comes about after pleasant sensation arises. We have this kind of a need, a thirst for more of that, because a pleasant sensation is something we normally look for in our lives. So we want more, and we want, because it comes from the object or the situation or what we're thinking about, we think the more we go towards that, the more pleasure we'll have. And the unpleasant sensation arises, we have to look carefully. Where is it coming from? What's the contact? Yeah. And then think, well, what's happening here? And then behind that is a craving not to have unpleasant sensations. So feeling pleasant, unpleasant leads to this craving. So one is craving for more of the pleasant sensation, one is craving more to be away from unpleasant sensations. And then there's a neutral feeling, which, like I said, is the basis for the other two types of feeling. So just by being in this samsaric body, we're going to have these sensations arise due to contact, due to the sense faculties of meeting the objects, and also so we can also have feeling, by our mental consciousness. So a lot of us by too much a negative aspect. We have distress coming, anxiety coming, stress coming. So we can have additional things by thinking our mental phenomena, like looking at our thoughts, our past. So you can also say we can have pleasant sensations by looking at our past, rejoicing in others, behavior, attitudes, etc. Then the mind has happiness, feeling happiness coming out. We do that, the mind is doing that. So we have that power to control our emotions, because feelings then gives rise to the emotions. So having a pleasant sensation, for example, by meeting sense object, and doesn't have to, but it can lead to attachment coming. Right, the attachment is a negative emotion, which we normally see as a disturbing emotion. All right, when there's unpleasant feeling arising due to some words we didn't expect to hear, seeing somebody behave in a certain aspect we didn't expect them to behave towards us, then unpleasant sensation comes, and it leads to aversion, and it leads to the negative emotion of anger, pushing away. So that's how the feelings give rise, in a way, to the emotions, and then because of that, we create karma. Because of that, we get reborn, right? So then understand a little bit how feelings, if you're not a little bit in charge of what's happening, they lead to deflections, and they lead us to creating karma. They leads us to rebirth. So the more the meditation is done, so I think it's the Goenka tradition that's more focusing on, from the four foundations of mindfulness, is focusing more on feelings. I have personally haven't done the Goenka retreats, but that's what I've heard. They do like a few days of just concentration, so like really staying on the breath, and then from there they go on to different sensations arising. So from the body you can see unpleasant sensations arising, like when you have pain in the body, the knees, hips are kind of screaming to move. It's like a unpleasant sensation, and the mind is craving not to have them. Right, it's like a clinging not to have them. So there's what's happening there. The mind is just watching the unpleasant sensation arise, and watching every kind of sense, every, how do you say, every aspect of that negative, unpleasant sensation. Just aspects. It's like sometimes like a throbbing, a tingling. It's like sometimes like needles. It's just the mind just watches as the unpleasant sensation arises, and let it pass away, because it stays. It's unpleasant for a while. It stays. Sometimes it increases to become. It's so intense. You feel like if you don't move, you probably won't walk again. But as you keep watching that unpleasant sensation, it just fades away. Right? It loses its power. So you can see, we don't have sometimes to follow, just because something's unpleasant, to follow it and react in inversion or sometimes anger. Right? Same way with the pleasant sensations. Again, with the meditation posture, sometimes some rapture comes, some kind of bliss comes. Again, to just see that sensation as that, not want to crave, to cling for it, have more of it. Just see that pleasant sensation arise, has an intensity, and then it fades, and something else arises. So the meditator has a really good understanding of feelings are just as they are, kind of almost like, and you almost let go of me feeling. It's just feeling. Yeah. So that's one way of slowly going into the mindfulness of feeling. First, identify what's pleasant, what's unpleasant, what's neutral, and then as they arise, just see them for as what they are, and just give some distance. Yeah, just give some space. Not with the identity of me feeling this. I am feeling this. It's just a feeling, just like that. So that leads also implicitly leads to understanding of selflessness. There is no actual me here having this feeling. Right? Or something like one of the reasons I think the Buddha gave in the Heart Sutra, he said about the five, what we call the five aggregates, what we're basically composed of. If you think of a self, a me, there's a body. So we looked at that last time. Normally we think of, well, sometimes we don't analyze it. We think that's me, the physical body. Yeah, but of course we all know the person, the I, is made of the body and the mind. So then there's the body's not the real me. Then we think, well, I'm feeling. It's me that's feeling. So it's like a sense of me, an identity feeling. So that's why he gave feeling also as one kind of mental, one aggregate. I was thinking, well, look at that. Is that actually you as well? Are you only feeling? How can that be? Because you also have body. It can't be just one part of mind that's feeling. Then he gave other things like discrimination, and then the main minds, the mental main mind. Some people think, well, I am seeing, I am hearing, I am tasting. So there's a me doing this. So that's also not the case. And there's also all the other types of mind that we might think of, like I am angry, I am happy. So we to kind of separate them out. This kind of idea of self, separate this self out. Yeah, it's based on all of them. It can't be just one of them, right? So in a similar way, if you look at feeling properly, there's actually no real me behind these sensations like that, right? So that's one aspect of seeing feelings closely, seeing their impermanent nature, seeing their kind of dissatisfying nature, and seeing also the selflessness nature. And it'll come after a while. We have to just first identify them. First, go with what are these? What like when sometimes yeah, like we sometimes we find it. Well, I find it difficult sometimes. Actually, what is this sensation arising? So we're not talking about so much the emotion, like am I sad? Am I happy? Am I tired? Am I you know excited, etc. But we're talking more what's the sensation behind that kind of emotion? What's the feet? So when you're feeling, what's the feeling? So when you're happy, it's a pleasant sensation. When you're tired, it can be pleasant, unpleasant. So you have to check from that emotion, what's behind, what's the actual sensation, right? But then, the question might come, for example, like say some of the antidotes we're using, say we get disenchanted with samsara, how samsara works, and we have this inner feeling to leave samsara. So that would be a happy feeling, right? Or like for example, we use the antidote like patience or loving kindness to reduce the minds of anger and aversion. Then it leads to a happy sensation, a pleasant sensation. And that's okay, right? But can you then get attached to cling to those antidotes? That's so then it leads to the opposite of the path, basically. So it seems to be that there's different ways of when the inner pleasant sensation arises. It doesn't necessarily mean that sensation is going to lead to an affliction, right? Because wishing to definitely emerge from samsara is a pleasant sensation, but it doesn't mean it leads to more craving. That craving leads you to take rebirth. So it's not like that, right? For example, I've taken the monk's vows. So am I attached to that? Am I attached to this lifestyle? Am I attached to these robes, or identification of monk? So yes, I think we have to make a slight distinction. Or some of you have taken the refuge vows, you've taken the lay precepts, So you have to check then, because you've taken them probably to stop yourself creating more causes for suffering to be in samsara. But if that leads to clinging, that might not be so good. But I don't think it has to be. We can see, having taken vows, having taken refuge, having taken monks or nuns' vows, practicing the path, it leads to an inner satisfaction, but that doesn't mean it's a cause for craving and being in samsara, right? So we have to make some distinction. Generally, the polluted, contaminated feelings, whether pleasant or unpleasant, leads to more craving, but it doesn't have to. So this is why we have to be a little bit careful how we talk about these things. So generally, talk about the contaminated sensations coming in samsara, whether they're pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, are a basis for craving, and that craving leads to rebirth and samsara. So, what are feelings lead to craving? What are the cravings? So, the cravings normally what we talk about are for the sense objects around us, right? As like I said before, the feelings arise due to meeting the sense objects, meeting, of course, the karma arising for you to see it like that. The feelings arise, and then there's, of course, mental objects as well, and then there's views. So this is one of the biggest things for us. Are probably, you know, we have certain views, mostly improper views, and then leads to a pleasant sensation. And that sensation, we cling to that basis, the view, as our source of happiness, and we cling to it. That's it, and that's it. So it talks about all kinds of philosophical wrong views, like holding on to a permanent self, holding on to a true me and I somewhere here in the body and mind, separate from the body and mind. That's more like that's considered a separate view, but there can be all kinds of different views, that we hold on to, that leads to so much difficulty because we think it's so true. It's our position. So again, like even down to like political views, ideology, and so much harm has been done due to that. If you think of the different extremes of the political situations, how much it leads to difficulty and for ourselves and then eventually for others. So yeah, so there's the sense objects, kind of the philosophical views, and then in the end there's this very strong view of the self-identity, me. That's like the basis of samsara, right? So you can see how feeling gives rise to that. So even, for example, the last week's topics, feeling, looking at the body, seeing as pleasant, and the sensation of clinging onto that as being pleasurable. Again, at least it's all connected, right? So we can focus on the body as a general topic, and then we can move on to feelings. But actually, by looking at the body, we also see feelings arise towards it, and we have to try and use the methods for that to reduce how we see the feelings as so essential in our lives that we have to. It leads to more clinging, more craving, and that leads to more negative emotions, and that leads to rebirth. Okay. So yeah, just generally how we see the feeling aspect of the full foundation of mindfulness, and then what happens from the bodhisattva perspective. We focus on ourselves, how we see. If you don't, we're not careful how feelings arise. We're not careful how, if we don't put antidotes, feelings give rise to negative emotions. We see how it leads to suffering. Then we put that same perspective, that same meditation out. We see how our parents next to us, relatives, or whoever we feel close to, close that we cherish, we feel great affection for immediately. Whichever caregiver was prominent in our life, we put them next to us. We see they're in the same position. How feelings gives rise to craving, gives rise to rebirth. Behind us are friends, all around us. The perspective changes to every being, when they've taken rebirth in samsara due to karma and afflictions. They're in the contaminated aggregates. They're having to go through different sensations as they come up, as they meet the sense objects, as they have views on certain positions, etc. They cling to them. How destructive it is for them, and how eventually it leads to more suffering, more rebirths. Then you go out to beings, the animal realms, all the different realms. And the mind starts to generate that compassion. Slowly, slowly, it softens. Just the way I am, so are they, right? Then the mind starts to kind of, like an ocean, just sweep into this idea of how difficult it is for beings to be in samsara due to these sensations arising as they arise, is clinging for the pleasant sensation, clinging as unpleasant sensations arise, clinging to be away from those unpleasant sensations, leading to anger, aversion, hatred, etc. And then the basis, just being in samsara, having the contaminant aggregates, there's neutral sensation. Then, then the mind, so the bodhisattva's idea is to focus from oneself out to others. In the same way that we did last time with the body, just as we are composed of parts, impure parts, impure by nature, so has everybody got these. But due to the wrong view of clinging to it as being pure, all kinds of afflictions arise and then create new causes for samsara. So that's kind of how it plays out. Okay. So 14 minutes. Okay, so I'll take a break now, a short break, and we come back. Okay, so if you have a few questions, we can do that. We have a 5-minute break, and we come back, and then we'll do a meditation on these topics. Okay, Michael?
Definitely.
Okay, so anyone has any questions?
I actually have a question that and
Yeah.
maybe this is an irrelevant question, but when we
Okay.
face samsara today, when we
Yeah.
face how much is there a way to know how much of what we're facing, what we're dealing with is because of the karmic nature that I'm generating today? I mean, in this lifetime versus in other lifetimes. Is there a way to know that or not? And is it even relevant? Does it really matter?
I didn't get it. Go again. So again. Yeah. Say again, please.
So when I face something karmic,
Yeah.
when I face samsara, when I face my own karmic nature, is there a way to know how much of the samsara I'm generating is coming from this lifetime and how much is coming from another lifetime? And
Oh, yeah.
does
Yeah.
it actually really matter if, even if I could say, hey, it's 75-25, it's 85-15, whatever, does
So,
it really
so
even
what do you mean? Like, what you experience? Like, the different sensations, what do you
different
say? The
sensations in
karmic
this?
experiences.
Yeah, the different sensations, the things that happen, the things
Yeah,
that I find frustrating, the things that I even like, the things that are good, all of that.
yeah. So actually, the gesture here, because normally when we talk about karma, we're talking about like past lives, ripening karma. But he said actually a lot of the stuff happening to us this life is coming from this lives. Like for example, what food we like to eat, our preferences in food, our habits, etc. He says most is coming from this life, our conditioning in this life, our parents, our schooling, our culture, etc. It's coming mostly this life. Yeah, yeah, like the karmic experience, what we like, what we don't like, it's coming mostly this life because of our conditioning. But then, of course, there can be something like having a very severe sickness when you're very young, like 6, 7 years old. They can't come from this life. That must be a karmic cause from past life ripening now, and it gives an unpleasant sensation. But again, how we deal with it at that age with that seriousness, again, that could be karmic imprints from past lives. Be, so, for example, like a physical sense of sickness comes. Some people deal with it horrifically; they mentally go down. Some people they accept it, whether they believe in karma or not. They say it's okay, it's just the way the body is. It's where sicknesses come, and the mind is stable even with this very heavy sickness. Some people have very few physical problems, but mentally they just go completely berserk. Just can't handle it. So then, is that from past karma that their minds are stable even? I mean, for the child or something who has a heavy sickness, is that past karma that Somehow their minds are mentally not disturbed by the physical sicknesses, physical imbalance. And for example, the other person have very few physical imbalances, but then mentally they go kind of haywire. They can't control it. It's because the past, because not being able to control before, not being patient and etc. It comes that they can't be patient with what's happening in their life. That could be past karma, but it could also be this life's karma. Like for example, you know, some people through training, through their parents, their culture, they're more restrained than other people. So that's probably from this life's karmic appearance. You see, so it's a whole mix of things. But in the end, does it matter? Probably not. Probably not, because all you're trying to do is to not to follow the negative traits, yeah, habits, etc., and try to reduce them. So that it, whether it's coming from past life or this life, it doesn't really matter. I think, from my perspective.
Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, for the interesting thing, so I read in, I'm not sure if you read Gendun and Dalai Lama's book. It's quite good. So as His Holiness explains his four foundations of mindfulness, he talks a little bit about this, how actually some feelings arise due to some views, you see, and then and you cling to that. Being monk, being Buddhist, being this, being a Tibetan tradition, that leads to a lot of difficulties, especially into Buddhist into Buddhist dialogues or interfaith things. It's like this is the best way, the only way is this. We don't know. It works for you, great, but it doesn't have to be. Then it leads to anger and all kinds of stuff. You guys are wrong, and what's going on. So we have to be careful. Huh? That's the thing. So yeah, we're trying to we're trying to improve ourselves. We actually go the other way because of this clinging to this identity and our views and our normally they should help us to improve. It goes the other way. But like you said, it's actually it doesn't have to. Yeah, I mean, we 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 have an inner sense of like we're taking refuge. We know this is the path for us. We met Buddhism. We see the antidotes are working for us. That's okay. We have a good sensation, unpleasant feeling, but that doesn't have to lead to clinging. You see, so this is where we make this. We make the decision to follow it into such an extreme or not. So it doesn't mean that every pleasant sensation is something we have leads to craving and attachment, and then leads to samsara. It's not like that. But it can lead to, like, some people go into meditations, they get their pleasant sensation arises in meditation. Then what happens? It goes as people go into more like shine, and then they go into shine is karma binding, and they go into the higher realm, higher meditation absorptions, and then they don't have pleasant or unpleasant sensation. They have neutral sensations, and that's kind of that also becomes kind of addictive attached to it, because it's like I think some of us we think neutral having a neutral sensation is like being like a zombie. It's not like that. When you're in this meditation state, it's so peaceful because you just have this neutral kind of thing at a level of sensation. Well, maybe like now, I don't know if you're sitting cross-legged or not, but if you're sitting and there's no really painful sensation and there's no unpleasant sensation, it's kind of nice. It's kind of, so that kind of mind is peaceful mind, and that can, if you're not careful, lead to clinging. So that's why some of those realms that we can get born into, or minds in a human state, we can achieve those states of mind. It becomes so kind of addictive. We could stay for a long time. Then we forget others around us, and how they need help and stuff like that. So we just in this inner concentration, it can be an obstacle. Okay. Any other queries? I see somebody called Heather's with us, right? But she's in Italy, I think.
Hi,
Aren't you in
Uh,
Italy, Heather?
back in Colorado.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. Nice to see you.
Yeah. Good. Melanie, Trust, Kimberly. I don't know. I guess like a virtual grandpa, you're all over the world, right? Except Victor. I know he's in Santa Fe. I
People
still
from
didn't see
Santa
Chris yet.
Fe,
We have
Utah,
a week off.
Arizona, California, Australia.
Yeah. Oh,
You're in
Australia.
France.
Eleanor was from New Zealand, right?
Canada.
Yeah, I remember Eleanor from last time. But anyway. Okay, this is getting a little bit more clear. I'm sure the body thing was a little bit maybe disturbing, but last time. But if you look at those notes and go through them a little bit, try to use those as your guide. It might help you. See, you don't do all of them in one go. You can check one aspect at a time and go through it. Just slowly watch what happens to the mind. See the result. How the mind can get just tamed down and a little bit without going to an extreme again. Being so low, but just try to see the bigger picture of who you are and how everything around you is. It's funny, because like I'm not sure I mentioned yesterday, but everything around us is like that. It's a reflection of us, but we don't like to see it somehow. Like we see, we put flowers, we buy flowers, we cut flowers, we put it on our altar. That very second well, of course, I mean, even it's growing, it's already fading, etc. But when we cut it, put it on an altar, we put water, even put this kind of special product in the water to make it last a little bit longer. You can't. It's impossible. It's by nature changing. Right? As soon as you put it in on the water and on your altar, it's already fading. We're just like that. As soon as we were conceived in the womb, we were already changing, and as of course we kind of grow up, they say we're already changing and fading in a way. That's it. What to do? We can put like we put the stuff in the water to make the condition to make it last a bit longer. Yeah, we can also do a bit of yoga, tai chi, qigong, eat chia seeds. Of course, but it's not gonna keep us forever, right? The more the mind gets that idea, the reality, we start to do something. It's a similar way we understand the feelings as they arise. And if you're not careful, it leads to all these negative emotions, you see. And those negative emotions, if they're not checked, leads to more difficulty in our lives and others' lives, and it creates the karma to have new rebirths, right? Whether they're good rebirths, difficult rebirths, it doesn't matter. They're still in samsara, right? So, of course, in a bigger perspective, like saying the Bodhisattva path, yes, it's good to have rebirths again, especially precious human rebirths, because it's a step, it's a basis to improve our minds again, and we make our way out of samsara, right? So it doesn't mean that if we, of course, some people might be able to have enough merit karma to do it this very life, but we have to be realistic. Again, see the bigger picture. We're not there yet. We haven't got the joyous effort. We haven't got that real conviction in karma. How it's just it's kind of terrifying to be in without control in samsara. To be just like a grain of sand in the ocean. The Pacific Ocean is just like taken by karma anywhere. You can be in any beach, just like put onto an island, taken back by the water, another place, and taken back. So we get reborn in many, many, many conditions. And some of it because we don't have control of where we get reborn. That sucks. It sucks basically. We don't want that, right? So then we have to make a preparation, a plan to get ourselves out. We understand the idea of how karma works. We understand bodhicitta is a fuel. Think of everybody else is in the same position. They're all being taken by karma. Like here we have autumn now in France, or just like a leaf in the wind, comes off, blown away, all over the place. We take rebirths in different situations, realms, again and again and again. So the whole path, we think, okay, let's make a plan to get good rebirths where we can meet the teachings again, we can understand the teachings, be able to practice, and we make our way slowly out. So, that's kind of a realistic plan we can do. We probably can't do it this very life. It'd be difficult for a lot of us. Of course, if you have that choice of it, you have that real kind of courage, compassion, see everybody's in a situation that you can't bear to see them suffering so much, in the same way you can't bear to see yourself suffering so much under these hallucinations, under these misconceptions. That gives amazing effort. Most of the texts that say people like the saints, like Milarepa, we talk about all these great saints, they had the same basis we have. They had the same body and mind, but they just made amazing effort. They saw exactly completely how samsara works, and how they saw how everybody is caught in the same way, and they said, I will be a kind of a protector, a guide for them. And with that, they went, not of course Minerva supposed to have done it that life, right? So in the same way, when you see our saint, even our human teachers we see around us, like Rinpoche, His Holiness, they're making incredible effort in this life. Like Rinpoche, who didn't said he didn't sleep. He didn't sleep because he was so much into this idea of using every minute of his life to benefit others, whether it's writing letters of advice or having interviews with people. I think his idea, his mind was, how can I sleep when there's so many beings need my help? So that kind of mind is just incredible, right? And you see His Holiness these days, the Dalai Lama, is talking very explicitly about his kind of understandings, his views. Normally, like monks and nuns, you're not supposed to kind of tell people about what levels of realization you have. But quite often he's kind of saying he's on the path of preparation, I think, going towards the path of seeing. Of course, I mean, everyone sees him as an enlightened being, but he himself is saying, well, I've got this and I've got this level. So if some of you know about the 5 paths in the Bodhisattva practices, the path of accumulation, path of preparation. Then when you see emptiness directly, path of seeing, and the path of meditation, and the path of no more learning. That's when you're enlightened. So be on the path of preparation, right? On path of accumulation, the first one, you need to have uncontrived bodhicitta. What does that mean, uncontrived bodhicitta? It means you don't need to put effort like we have to do. We have to go to the 6 causes, manifest, or exchanging self for others, or see all beings, seeing all beings from others, seeing their own suffering. We go through these steps. So when meditators have done that enough, it becomes a spontaneous wish to achieve enlightenment for others, whether you're walking, driving, sleeping. That mind is always with you. You never lose it. See, with that, you enter the path of accumulation. As you train in the full foundations of mindfulness that we're doing, we see in the body, feelings, mind, phenomena. We see them also as empty of inherent existence. We see them all empty of having no intrinsic nature to it. We see that directly for the first time. It's called the path of seeing. Why? Because you see emptiness directly. And it's given, fueled up by bodhicitta, and you start to then break through all the seeds of the afflictions that keep us in samsara. Of course, the Dalai Lama, many are seeing him as, of course, a manifestation of Avalokiteshvara, the Buddha of compassion, etc. But he himself, this life as an ordinary being, says, I have this level, I've got this, I've got this. That gives a lot of joy for us, because it's like a lot of us we talk about this realizations or level, we think, well, who's got them? Where are these people, right? So he's actually saying, yes, I have this now. And he himself, early on in his life, when he was in his 20s, he used to even question, is bodhicitta an actual possible mind to achieve? He used to ask his teachers, Lingam Rinpoche, the past Lingam Rinpoche, and Trijang Rinpoche, the past Trijang Rinpoche. And his teachers said, of course, it's possible, because we'll look at it next week. that the mind isn't inherently existent. Because of that, the afflictions, the latencies, etc., can be completely removed. Because of that, or like for bodhicitta, is a self-cherishing mind, a self-centered mind, which is kind of it's the one that keeps us into thinking of me, my happiness, me. So they said, of course, even that mind has its antidotes. That's thinking of others, loving kindness, compassion, etc. And if that's done, then bodhicitta can arise. So he's saying, before he doubted it, but he's saying now he has it, basically, kind of, because he can't be on the path of accumulation if he didn't have it. So that's kind of amazing, that gives this real source of inspiration for us. For in the old days, he wouldn't be talking about it like that, but these days he is. I think because people maybe to give us encouragement, people to see it's actually a possibility, not just in the textbooks. Okay. All right. So maybe if there's no other questions, I'd like to do the meditation. It's okay. So please adjust your posture. So again, the mindfulness of the body comes in as we just scan the body. So start with the crown of the head, go across the face, down into the throat, shoulders, then scan the back, going down between the shoulder blades, going down to lower back, down into the hips, the legs, right down into the feet. If you can, take the mindfulness right down to the soles of the feet, when you become aware of the different sensations. And coming back up on the feet, legs going towards the front of the body, the abdomen, stomach, chest. Across the top of the shoulders and down the arms into the hands. Then back from the hands, up the arms, back to the shoulders. Then going across the back of the neck, back of the head. Gently adjust your spine and go up to the crown of the head again. So start by identifying any sensation you have in your physical posture right now. Your feet touching the soles, feet touching the ground, your hips and back against the chair or the cushion, or the sensation in your hands. Begin to identify it, kind of label it. See where there is neutral sensation, or experience neutral sensation, experience unpleasant sensation. And then try to go to a place where there is an unpleasant sensation. Kind of zoom into that and try to kind of feel it. That energy, try and feel that energy, whether it's kind of a throbbing kind of pain, or it's like a dull pain, or it's like a stabbing pain, or it's just general unpleasant, some way. And feel behind that there's a craving to be free from that, an aversion to that unpleasant sensation. And then see how that resonates with many aspects in your life when you've also had unpleasant sensations in terms of mental, also physical. So meeting difficult people, difficult situations. And then there's that feeling to be completely free from that. And it leads to aversion, leads to anger, impatience. So now come back to the body, your posture. Find a pleasant sensation, warm, soothing sensation in the body. And we check as we enjoy that, be with it. Behind it, there's a liking for it, wanted to extend that sensation, extend it in time. And then, same way, resonate in this life. How much we've been following those pleasant sensations, whether it's to be with people we like because they comfort us, kind of inflate our egos, or they appreciate us, respect us. And then when we mistake them as the real sources of happiness, see how often those sensations have led us, like a cow, an animal being led by its nose. How often we've been disappointed. And then seeing how when we couldn't keep up this sensation or we got disappointed, how then it led to more aversion, anger. Then we concentrate on somebody we really appreciate in our lives, one of our caregivers of this life, whether it's our parents or another being, grandparents or relative or an adopted parent, it's okay, whoever gave us that major affection in our life. We look how they're also in the same predicament. As pleasant sensations arise, meeting people they like to be with, or situations, whatever, giving physical or mental happiness, being so elated. And then that quickly, over time, changes. And how when they have unpleasant sensations, so much aversion, anger, and so then In the same way that we create these karma due to following these sensations and then emotions arise, so do they. In an uncontrolled way, they will take rebirth again and again and again. Then from there, moving on to another. This time, perhaps somebody less strong in connection, could be a neutral person. And finally, to a difficult person. I see they're probably holding on to very strong views of their ideology, what they think is right, what they think is beneficial for others. Imposing their views on others, imposing their doctrine, their ethics. Try to let the mind open up, accept what's happening, see that's there, karma. So then we let the mind go out to all beings, wherever a being has taken rebirth in samsara under karma afflictions. Then meeting the objects, sense objects, then past karma giving rise to feelings, unpleasant, neutral. They create new afflictions arising, create actions and causes for future rebirths. So let that mind of compassion arise, how wonderful they were free from samsara, completely free from the clinging, the craving. Then if that a mind is strong enough, that courageous mind, may I become a protector, a helper for all of these beings. We go, we take our minds to the Buddha in front of us. Again, gazing down gently, smiling, accepting us as we are with our faults, but happy with our progress as we're trying to change. And then he comes to the crowns of our heads, turns to face the same direction that we're sitting. It becomes smaller and smaller. And slowly it dissolves into us, so like a drop of water that dissolves into the ocean. Imagine the Buddha dissolves into us, blessing our body, speech, mind. So again, you can feel a very pleasant sensation arise as the mind mixes with the Buddha's mind, feeling blessed, feeling inspired. But this pleasant feeling doesn't have to lead to craving. It's just a pleasant feeling. And then we can dedicate, so whatever merit we accumulated from this session, we can dedicate first to all of these sentient beings. May they all meet paths that suit them, meet teachers that can guide them in the right way, and they generate that trust, conviction, faith, and be able to free their minds from all their misconceptions and the self-cherishing, self-centered thoughts, and eventually reach stable happiness, which is the enlightened mind. How wonderful that was possible. And you can dedicate for yourselves, for ourselves. We also be able to, due to this merit, create the cause again and again to meet teachers, this life, future lives that can guide us. May we have all the conditions to practice, have the insight, knowledge, and break through all the clingings of samsara to reach that enlightened mind to help all these beings. Those we have strong connection with, may we become a guide, a protector for them. And we pray for teachers like His Holiness to live long and healthy lives, teachers who passed away like Lama Zopa Rinpoche to come back from wherever their Dharmakaya has manifested, come back to manifest in our realm to guide us in a human form. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Session finished.
Thank you, Venerable.